All right, let's talk about the Alabama Crimson Tide. Obviously, heading into a very interesting cross-conference rival matchup this weekend. All eyes are focused, of course, on them in this big-time matchup. But there's been some under-the-radar news that Alabama may be about to pull off an incredible recruiting move. Exciting news out of Tuscaloosa. I'm Nick, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, so Alabama off to a good start, I would say. A little slow last week, but they figured it out at the end, heading into a matchup against Wisconsin. We're all expecting Alabama to assert their dominance there. But while this is going on, all of the programs, of course, around the country are still, always are, focused on recruiting and the next generation. Alabama is no different, and it looks like they've got some great news on the recruiting front. It seems they may be closing in and on pulling off an incredible flip. Let's get into this report, courtesy of 24/7 Sports. Alabama five-star quarterback commitment Keelan Russell has his eyes on Texas wide receiver commits Khalil Lockett and Jamie French. Russell, the number 10 overall prospect and number 3 quarterback in the 2025 class, told national recruiting analysts that he's looking to flip the Longhorns' pair of five-star pass catchers. Those Texas boys like Lockett and French, they think they are locked on, but I want them to come play with me, Russell said this week. We're just trying to get some guys to flip and work on open up their minds to what we could do at Alabama. French initially committed to Alabama, as I'm sure you guys remember, and honored his pledge for 6 months before opening his recruitment 2 days after Nick Saban announced his retirement in January. Alabama was one of Lockett's 5 finalists and made one of his last 2 official visits to Tuscaloosa before pledging to Texas. Look, I think there is nothing more tempting for a wide receiver than a star quarterback saying, "Come with me." We see this all the time in professional football. We see this all the time in college football as well. I think this is great news for Alabama. First of all, the fact that they got a commitment in Russell who's willing to go out and recruit guys, that's always a great sign. But I think the fact that he's so active, and I think a guy like French and Lockett both were looking at Alabama before, I think the odds of at least one of them, maybe even both flipping, are really high. I think they could pull it off. Miles, I'm curious what your thoughts are on this. But first, Alabama fans, in the comment section below, heading into, of course, their third matchup, give us your prediction. Final score, Alabama versus Wisconsin. I think a lot of people expect this to be a blowout. I think looking at almost like a 35-10, 38-10 kind of game. But curious what you guys have to say. Do you have a different viewpoint on this? Let us know your prediction, Alabama, Wisconsin, in the comment section below. But Miles, what are your thoughts on this latest news out of Tuscaloosa?
Yeah, Nick, I love this for Alabama because we've seen a similar iteration of this over at Nebraska with Dylan Raiola. This is a guy, top tier quarterback, came into Nebraska. Matt Rule enlisted him to help recruit guys. They were able to get, a lot of guys thinking about Nebraska, a lot more people coming over that way. But this is different. Keelan Russell, he's also a 5-star quarterback. He's also one of the better players in his class. But Alabama lately has been a little bit nicer than Nebraska. It's a little bit more tempting for people to come to, just a little bit. I think he's got more firepower under his belt to say, we're going to go win a championship. If Dylan Raiola says, we're going to win a championship at Nebraska, you'd be like, well, maybe we could. There's some promise. Some things are happening, but I think they're getting better. I don't think they are there yet. Not even close. Alabama, on the other hand, if you say we're going to win a national championship, I think you feel like that's really, really possible. So I love that these guys are, coming out. Keelan Russell saying, hey, come play with me at Alabama. There's greatness here. We can be great. He says that actually a little bit later on in the article. He's like, you want to be legendary, you know where to come, and that is Alabama. And I think there's a really good chance of this happening because the end of the tidbit that you read, it talks about these guys have already been primed to come to Alabama already. The wheels have been greased. French actually already committed to Alabama. They lose Saban. Everyone questions there. That's definitely something that happens. Is it going to be just as good? Is there going to be a lot of change with Saban being gone? And I think we're saying, no, not really. They're still pretty good. They're still a contender. This is still a top tier organization to go to. So with the addition of Keelan Russell kind of making that push, I think that we see these two guys flip back to Alabama. It's obviously potentially one for French, definitely the place he wanted to go. For the other one, I think it's one of the ones that he's looking at. They said it made the last top 2 visits at the end. I think this is something that actually could happen because the wheels were already primed for Alabama, and now we're getting that little bit of a push from a guy like Keelan Russell.
Well, I think these moves, and certainly we saw this, I think, from French, right? Was, well, Nick Saban's gone, Alabama's going to stink. I want to go somewhere that's going to be good, right? That was essentially the logic, right? And there's nothing inherently wrong with that at face value. Nick Saban being the all-time great head coaches, Sarkisian doing a good job at Texas. They went to the college football playoff last year, right? Looking good so far this year. Makes sense. But the whole bet there was predicated on Alabama regressing. And so far, based on the polls, based on their performance, it doesn't look like they may be regressing. And here's the other sneaky thing: the emergence of Ryan Williams, the phenom, the 17-year-old kid that's going out there doing incredible things. He's like I mean, he's still a kid. He's still 17 years old, but looks like a grown man out there with his incredible playmaking ability. I guarantee you, there's a lot of other high schoolers that are saying, huh, I want to be the next Ryan Williams. Because here's the one problem Texas has: a lot of their big name recruits have to sit and wait. And that was what Nick Saban was able to do at Alabama, but that was after winning national titles, right? You're winning national titles every year or competing for them. You can tell recruits coming in, sit and wait. Texas hasn't even gotten to a national title game yet. So you have to balance that, right? If you're a recruit, you go, okay, Alabama's still good. They haven't fallen off. They're still good. Texas is good. But if I go to Alabama, I might play as a freshman. At Texas, they're going to bench me for 2 years. I guarantee you that's what Keelan Russell is saying. That's what the Alabama coaches are saying. And wide receivers like French and Lockett here are going to look at this and say, hey, listen, I like Texas. I'm committed to Texas, but I was primed to go to Alabama, and I may actually play and start there day one and make an impact on a team that's also going to be a top 5, top 4 program. I think that's too tempting to ignore. And that's why I think there's a lot of momentum and energy behind the Crimson Tide flipping at least one, if not both of these commits to them down in Tuscaloosa away from Austin. I think they pull it off. I think it's a big time move coming here for the Alabama Crimson Tide.